The whistle.
Happy hump day, hump day. It's Wednesday. We are back. And check out the episode last night we did. It's on Calix Boxing here on Calix Boxing 2.0. And we'll be doing the roundtable. We got some heavy hitters tomorrow night, huh? On the roundtable.
It's going to be a good show. I mean, I'm on, of course. You know what I mean? Of course, Calix will be on. Joe Habib will be on. Ohio Runs Boxing will be on. Michael Montero will be on. Ring IQ will be on. So it'll be interesting. It'll be a good show.
Heavy hitting show. Good boxing minds. So that'd be great. But hit that like button as y'all come in. You do one thing, hit that like button. And if you sub, make sure to hit the alerts as well. All that good stuff. So I talked about this earlier on Twitter. The video kind of went viral. But if you take, and I did this the end of last year, and it's a good time to redo this experiment because we're 7 months into 2022. So it's starting to give us an expanded outlook of where we're at in boxing and how active these fighters truly are. And we can no longer use COVID as an excuse. We can't use politics as an excuse, as some people are throwing out at me on Twitter. 2021, 2022, we're talking about 19 months. We're talking about over a year and a half.
Yeah.
The reason I use BoxRec as a reference, it's the only expanded pound for pound list that I know of.
Right.
And if somebody else can let me know, because I don't like BoxRec's pound for pound list. The reason I don't like BoxRec's pound for pound list is it's too rigid, right? They're trying to use an objective criteria for something that's supposed to be subjective. So when you do that, you get Deontay Wilder in the top 10 pound for pound, for instance, right behind Niawe anyway. And before Inoue beat Donaire, he was outside of the top 20. So I'm just giving you an example of, I don't like BoxRec's pound for. I don't think you can be objective with something that's supposed to be subjective. But that's besides the point. The ultimate point is the reason I use BoxRec is it gives us an expanded outlook, and all the top fighters are going to in the sport are going to be in that top 50 pound for pound. And I'm using the top 50 pound for pound when I do this little exercise here on.
By the way, I still trust BoxRec over most people's pound per pound, but that's not here nor there.
Good point. Good point. But the reason I want to use an expanded list is it gives us a bigger pool to go off of, right? This is a decent sized pool of all the top fighters in the sport. So we're talking about the top 50 pound for pound fighters in the sport. Okay. And if you take 2021 and 2022, here are some of the numbers that it gives us. Out of 19 months, a year and a half, the top 50 fighters in the sport have fought a combined 110 times since January of 2021, 19 months. In 2022, the top 50 fighters in the sport through 7 months have fought a combined total of 42 times so far, not even one. So what those numbers tell us so far is on average, if we're taking the numbers from 2021 and 2022, the top 50 fighters in the sport pound for pound are fighting on average once per 9 months. To me, that's unacceptable. To me, that's not something that you can build off of that's sustainable and leads to a sustainable sport. A full-time fighter, in my mind, in today's boxing climate, would be a guy who fights twice per year. Would you agree with that? Is that something generally?
At the very least, like averaging once every 6 months would be accurate, yes.
And that's why I like doing it now, because through 18 months, these guys should have fought 3 times. 3 times, right? But if we look at this, only 2 fighters in the top 50 pound for pound BoxRec have fought twice in 2022 so far. Joe Smith Jr. and Mark Magsayo. So credit to them. Only 2 fighters have fought 4 times so far in the 19 months we're talking about.
In fairness, better be fought like at the very end of December, right? Right. So I just want to throw that out.
And Canelo too have fought in December, but in fairness, but some of those guys only fought in December of that year. So that's why I like to go off of calendar year. It makes this easier, right? It makes it easier than going 24 months. We're going off 100%. Of calendar year. And I think at this point, 19 months is a good basis to go off of, right? 19 months. Because, yeah, you're going to have guys that fought in December of 2020. But like I said, you're going to have guys who didn't fight in 2020 at all. I think this is a decent sample size to use at this point. But 19 fighters have fought 3 times. So what that tells me is only 21 fighters up to this point in calendar year 2021, 2022 qualify under our criteria as full-time fighters out of 50. So that means the other, what's the 29, we would consider part-time fighters. So more fighters in the top 50 pound for pound off of BoxRec are part-time fighters than full-time fighters. What do you make of that, just off the top of your head?
I think it's the current climate of boxing. I think it's if you look at those top names, I'm sure a lot of them got some pretty good money, and they don't see an incentive to go back in there unless they're making the same or somewhere close to the same or more. And how willing are execs, because they're the ones that pay, like how willing are they to keep paying these guys the money they want to be active like that? You know what I mean? Like, that's the reality. If you take, like, throw me a random name, anybody.
Terrence Crawford.
Okay, Terrence Crawford. If Terrence Crawford was offered a fight, and a very winnable fight against whoever, let's say they're like top rank just throughout. I know he's not with them anymore, but let's say he was. Mm-hmm. If we got Jose Ramirez, a very winnable fight to keep you busy, we'll give you $2 million. And then, of course, Ramirez wants to make his money because he's taking a big risk to fight Terrence Crawford. So you're going to have to pay him more than you regularly pay him. Crawford's not going to say yes to $2 million. Like, he's going to be like, what? I don't fight for $2 million. Like, what the hell is this? So that's why. Like you could take any fighter. You could throw me another fighter.
Jermell Charlo.
Hey, Jermell, you know what? You're not going to fight until January against Tim. Let's keep you busy. We got 900,000 for you right now to fight Gaucher, just to keep you busy. You know what I mean? It's going to be like, what? I'm not going to get in the ring with this dude I don't fight for that money anymore. I just don't, right? And you could do that with any fighter. And then, of course, the guy he's going to fight is going to want more money than they usually make. Guys don't want to make the same that they make when they're going to step up against someone that's likely going to beat them or could beat them. The bigger the risk, the more they want paid. So, and then the guys that want to tune up, they want, they still want to get paid to be in the ring. So that's what's happening. Like, yes, it's a good thing that fighters make money, and I'm all for that. I'm all for the fighters making money and all that. But what I'm not for is, and I want to make sure I say this right, I'm not for just making it rain on fighters just to make it rain on fighters. Okay, just because there's a budget, right? And if you take chunks of that budget because he's a warrior, he puts his life on the line, they deserve everything, right? Okay, but every time you take from the budget becomes smaller. And what about all the other fighters? You know what I mean? What about everybody else? They put their lives on the line. They're warriors too, but you didn't leave anything on their plate, right? So I'm for fighters making what they generate, because that will create a fair system. Hey, why not? I want to get paid what I got paid when I did that unification. Well, when you did the unification, you both drew more, so you made more. You're not going to draw as much fighting this guy, right? So in short, what's causing a lot of inactivity with a lot of these top fighters is the fact that they're getting paid really good money, all right? And they don't need to stay active like a Ray Robinson had to back in the day to keep bringing in money. They just don't. Like, realistically, the Charlos, bro, they got nice cars, a nice home. Jermall doesn't have an incentive to stay busy. Like, the only thing that keeps these guys busy is if they're hungry for legacy. That's it.
Yep. So unless these fighters are going for legacy, there's no other incentive for them to stay active. And the legacy isn't enough for these guys anymore. It's not enough. They want more than that. They want other things than that. So that's the issue with us as a fans, because this has to resemble a sport for us, right? Or else we leave and we're an important part of this, right? Because we're the ones paying for all of this, and we're the ones subsidizing this broken system currently. But you see, if
We're
you're
also the ones that make it relevant, by the way. If nobody watched boxing, and there was no audience for boxing, right? Because everybody, the hardcores, they think they're special. It's about the casuals. The casuals only show up for the big events.
yeah,
We keep the shit afloat.
yeah,
Just saying.
yeah, and look, certain fighters, you say, okay, once per year for you guys who went through the gauntlet already, they're past their prime, so they're looking for big fights on their way out, right? Like Chocolatito, Gallo Estrada, maybe a Terrence Crawford who's 30-something years old, maybe a Deontay Wilder who's up there in age, upper 30s as well. You say, okay, once per year, you're at that point in your career. Okay, I can understand that. But that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about a trickling down all the way down. We're talking about guys in their prime, wasting their prime years fighting once per year. And then on top of that, and this is where I have a real problem, we have prospects coming up in fighting the same amount of fights that guys in their prime used to fight a generation or two ago. We got guys who should be fighting once, twice per month, every 3 months at the very least, 4 times per year, but prospects should be fighting 6 times per year. We're seeing prospects come not even quarterly now. Mm-hmm. Not even quarterly, not even showing up. They're fighting 3 times per year as prospects. So how do you plan to engage?
And fights are dominating. They're not taking a lot of damage, by the way. You know what I mean?
But how do you plan on organically growing your base if you're not staying in people's face? If you're a prospect fighting 3 to 4 times per year, so this culture is spilling all the way down. Is the issue?
If I may, let me just kind of give everybody a rundown here, okay? This fighter fought in 1997, and you're going to know who I'm talking about as I continue. He fought Miguel Angel Gonzalez in January. Mm-hmm. A top 10 dude. He fought him. Then he fought the welterweight champion of the world, whom many consider the top pound-for-pound fight in the world, in April of 97 in Pernell Whitaker. Then he returned to the ring in June. Okay, fought David Kamau in the Alamo Dome, who was 28-1. Then returned in September to fight a Hector Camacho. I just knocked out Ray Leonard at middleweight. All right. Then in December, fought with Fredo Rivera, who was 27-2. This was gold medalist. Okay, the Golden Boy, the most popular boxer outside of a Mike Tyson. The most popular boxing outside of Tyson in the sport of boxing. A draw, pay-per-view draw, gate draw, popular. The girls liked all that stuff, right? But you know what he had? For all the shit people say about De La Hoya, he wanted to fight the best. He wanted to prove to people that he was the best, right? So that's what he did. And guess he fought Whitaker that year. So just think about that. And then, but that's the 90s. That was the last century. Canelo fought last year. He fought December, February, May. And he was supposed to fight in September, but they were playing hardball. And shout out to Plan. He got his 10 mil. I'm not mad at him or nothing, but the reason that fight happened till what was it, November? What was because of the delay? Look how many times Canelo fought in 1 year, but the only thing people talk about is the Yildirim fight. He fought, okay, if he only fought one time, you would have point. But he fought Smith, then Yildirim, then Billy Joe, then Plant. He fought 4 times in a one rolling year. And that's the biggest star, the biggest name, the biggest gates. Like when you talk about being pop, that was Canelo. That was just recently. I'm just saying. All right. Even Floyd and Manny fought at least twice. When they were the big names, even they fought twice a year, Calix. Even Manny Pacquiao and Mayweather, ain't none of these dudes that big right now.
Yeah. And look, Mayweather's name is being thrown out there. And, like I said, once a guy gets to a certain point in his career, And look, we're gonna judge that his legacy, right? And let's throw out Chocolatito's name when it comes to this, because a guy who hasn't been as active at this point in his career, and he's going to be punished for that on the pound for pound rankings, right? It becomes a question: how much equity has he built up? Gallo Estrada is the same thing. How much equity has he built up in order to stay on the pound for pound list when younger guys are putting on great performances and these guys aren't as active? But I can understand that these guys went through a gauntlet at certain point in their career. Floyd's name is being brought up, and why I think that's important is we brought this up months ago on the channel. We were talking about the boxing trivia. Who was the 1998 Ring Magazine Fighter of the Year 2 years into his career? It was Floyd Mayweather. And you know why it was Floyd Mayweather? He fought six times that year. He won a legitimate title against Genaro Hernandez, and then less than 2 months later, he defended it against Angel Manfredi.
And by the way, no offense to Cambozas. I mean, I thought Genaro Hernandez is a better fighter, and Floyd fought that dude in his second year, bro, and he dominated him. That's what he stopped him. You know, he didn't go 12 rounds. Like he dominated him and stopped him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, just saying.
No, I mean, I don't see guys besides the only two guys I see putting up those type of resumes that you just named with De La Hoya, that I just named with Mayweather, and you can name other guys, Chavez Sr., that are putting out consistent output of fights. James Toney used to do this all the time. James Toney would win a big fight, and less than 2 months later, he was on USA Tuesday Night Fights. Those were full-time fighters. Those were great fighters. Yeah. They were consistently putting out output. They were consistently fighting and defending their titles and putting together great full-time years. The only two guys we can point to currently who are putting together that type of resume is Canelo last year and then Bam Rodriguez this year. And D-Style just dropped off, but Bam Rodriguez this year. I mean, those are the two guys that are actively fighting, winning championships, defending their championships against the top guys in their division. At least Canelo, coming off of a loss, at least he tried to go up to 175 and beat Dimitri Bivol. So I can understand him taking a loss. I would rather guys take chances, get a loss, fight 3 to 4 times per year. I'd rather the guy fighting top competition going 2-1, 3-1 than the guy fighting once per year going 1-0. But I can read off more statistics that are frustrating to see. 10 fighters in the top 50 pound for pound by BoxRec. 10. That's 20% of them haven't fought yet in 2022, and we're almost to month 8. Let me read that again. 10 fighters in the top 50 pound for pound by BoxRec haven't fought yet in 2022. 13 fighters have only fought once in the 19 months that encompass calendar year 2021, and 2022. 13 fighters, 13 out of the top 50 by pound for pound BoxRec have only fought once in the past 19 months. Just think about that. Just try to wrap your head around that. 16 fighters have fought twice in the past 19 months. So we're looking at a picture. We have a picture here. And this is why I use BoxRec's pound for pound rankings, even though I hate them. I use it because it gives us a large sample size, the largest that I know of when it comes to pound for pound. So in this top 50, you're going to have the top fighters in the sport in that top 50, no matter where you have them ranked. And you're going to have a different myriad of fighters in there. You're going to have top fighters in their prime. You're going to have guys a little past their prime. You're going to have young up-and-coming fighters going into their prime. So it gives us a large sample size, a versatile sample size, and it gives us a long timetable of 19 months. And when you take this full picture, it paints a troubling picture of a sport in which we have, at the top, we now have more part-time fighters than full-time fighters. And we're also developing a picture in which this is trickling down all the way down to the lowest level, where you have prospects now who aren't as active as they need to be. And you've got guys who haven't entered their prime yet. I say this about Boots Ennis all the time. If Boots Ennis isn't going to get the top fights at 147, there are two directions you can go. You can go the Paul Williams direction, and you can give up some of your strengths and attributes by moving up in weight, going up to 154, 160 in order to try to land the big fights there if you want to be more aggressive. Or, and this pertains to what we're talking about, you can get more aggressive as being more active. You can fight every 3 months. You can take the Gennady Golovkin route. Gennady Golovkin would fight every 3 to 4 months against the top fighters available to him in 2012, 2013, 2014, and at least stay active. All right, not waste any time. Stay active. Stay in people's faces. Give them highlight reel KOs. Develop a relationship with boxing fans to where people know your name and to where more boxing fans are demanding you be in the bigger fights because they know who you are, and you've developed a relationship to them to where they want to see you in the big fight. They want to see that. And right now, we don't have fighters doing that. All I see is excuses. All I see as well is the politics. And I just want to bash into people's head that these aren't real obstacles. They're telling you that they're obstacles, but these fights can get made. These fighters can fight multiple times in a year. People keep telling me that fighters want the fights. They're just not given the fights. Politics get in the way. I don't believe you. I don't believe you. Because fighters who want to go for legacy are fighting legacy fights, fighting like they want to go for legacy right now. Canelo, Bam Rodriguez, and we should be rewarding those fighters for doing that.
You know what? Devin Haney.
He
made a move that I'll admit it, bro. I didn't think Haney was going to go sign with Top Rank. If he would have told me, oh, he's going to sign with Top Rank, he's going to sign a 3-fight deal, he's going to secure that fight, I would have told you you're crazy. I would have said, nah, that's not the pattern he's showing, because I felt like the zone was throwing a lot of money Devin Haney's way, okay? And there wasn't really an incentive for him to do all that when he's getting that bread. But a lot of circumstantial things happened. Like, for example, the zone was kind of like, we're not going to keep paying you this money for this level of opponent anymore. You know, so that kind of led the way, but he did the right thing, you know. And I've always told fighters, hey, if they offer you the money, get your money. I'm not going to get in the way of a fighter making money. Like, I'm not mad at the fighter when they take advantage of the system. I just want to make sure people understand that. If somebody offers a fighter $7 million, like the zone offered Ryan, right? I'm not Ryan, Mikey, to fight, Vargas. Hey, you take that money. I'm not going to say no, right? But what I'm mad at is the way they're allocating the funds and the money towards the sport. And I don't think they're doing it correctly. And I think this is causing a lot, like you call it, the chronic inactivity. We have guys that haven't done anything, Alex, like living in mansions. So, you know what I mean? At least to me, they're a mansion. At least good luxury homes. Mm-hmm. Nice gated communities, and they're just fighting once a year. They're chill. They'll make their $1-2 million a year, like just fighting fights they know they'll win. It's hard to tell somebody to take risk and fight this other dude for the same amount, but he's more dangerous. He could hurt you. Like it's that's what we have now. We're not incentivizing fighters in prize fighting to the higher the risk, the challenge, the more money you make. You know what I mean? Yeah. The system isn't incentivizing that right now.
Incentives have to be there.
Yeah,
it's human nature, right? It's human nature. And this isn't just something you do with your children or your pets. Incentives need to be there. They have to be there. You have to incentivize people to do good things. And if you incentivize bad behavior, you're going to get more of it. And the frustrating thing for me is I feel like I'm more at odds with boxing fans than I know what the promoters and managers are going to give me. I know it. I've already seen it. We've been dealing with these guys since we've been following boxing. But when I see boxing fans and even journalists, that's the really hard pill to swallow, is journalists rewarding the behavior of, and I'm just throwing it because this is the easiest example.
Yeah.
Rewarding the behavior of a Tank Davis or Ryan Garcia instead of rewarding the behavior of Devin Haney. When I see guys on here saying that Devin Haney needs to be more like Garcia and Tank, and that the real undisputed championship at 135 is Tank Davis versus Ryan Garcia. It just these are the people that are frustrating to me because
that's just
I
factually
feel
not
like the
even
promoters
correct.
and managers are taking advantage of an ignorant market.
Yeah, they're taking. Of course, they are. Look. You want to know about the casual fan? Let me introduce you to the casual fan, ladies and gentlemen. I won a lot of money because there was people that thought Conor McGregor was going to beat Floyd Mayweather. Okay, that is the casual fan. So if you're looking for logic, or if you're looking for like them to understand what the best fighting the best is, there's people that have already in their mind constructed Tank Davis as the best. He doesn't have to prove it. He's so good that he proved it without doing it, right? I've never known of a fighter being that good that they could prove they're the best without actually proving it, right? Like not even Michael Jordan was that good, Calix. Like Jordan had to win an NBA title, MVPs. He had to go there, outperform Malone and Barkley, right? He had to go. But not even he was so good that he could avoid that competition. People would just call him the best ever. Like, you know what I mean? So that's how good Tank Davis is, that he don't even need to prove it, according to some of his biggest fans, right? We need to incentivize the behavior that we want. If we want the best to fight the best, we need to incentivize fighters that fight the best. If we want to incentivize fighters that take risk, then we need to incentivize them by saying, you know what, he's taking this risk. So me as a boxing fan, I'm not going to shit on this fighter if he loses this fight, because he's going to take that risk. Because that's what happens when you take risk. You can lose. Okay? That's just the way it is. And
Failure's
I promise
normal,
you.
man. Failure's normal. Everybody fails at
Yeah, but
everything. And you can't get good until you fail.
Floyd never lost, though. I mean, he's a bronze medalist, but he never lost. You know what I mean? I never heard of a bronze medalist walking around like he never lost. I never heard of it. I'm just saying.
Failure is part of it, and we can't take that out. We can't take out the part where you have to go through the fire. We can't take that part out because it's no longer organic. But unfortunately, an educated boxing fan base is part of this solution. And that's going to be the toughest part of the solution. It is, because if we put pressure, if you have an educated fan base, they can put pressure on these promoters, managers to make these fights. But if not, then they're just going to take advantage of an uneducated, ignorant market. And that's what's happening now. But there has to be the checks and balances. Right now, there's checks and balances when it comes to managers, promoters, network execs here, sanctioning bodies here, fighters here. And guess what? The managers, promoters look out for the fighters, right? The network execs look out for the fighters. The sanctioning bodies look out for the fighters. So we have people looking out for fighters, D-Style, who are paid to look out for fighters.
Do you remember
Our
that?
job as boxing fans are just to be entertained and to pay for the fighters to entertain us. And the frustrating part about all this to me, real quick, is every time I bring up points like this, people just act like I'm the dude in the Coliseum saying, off with his head, off with his head. I want to see more blood. And it's not that, man. All of us are for fighter safety here. We know in order for there to be a sustainable sport, there has to be fighter safety. We have to have that. We want fighters to get paid well. We want fighters to live good. They're the ones in there performing. But when I'm constantly being asked to carry more of the burden, when ESPN Plus subscription goes up, when the DAZN subscription goes up, when the Showtime subscription goes up, and then I'm getting less for what I'm paying for, that's when you start to say, no. It's time for this balance to tip more the other way. And I don't feel bad for asking for this. As a boxing fan, my channel's mission now is a boxing fan speaking to boxing fans, and a boxing fan unapologetically demanding what I want.
I mean, that's where we are. I mean, look, I know that, and I want to make sure I say this. Like, this year has been a good year for boxing. I just want to make sure people understand that it's been a good year, and maybe things will start trending better, right? But it doesn't mean that there's a difference between acknowledging that it's good and also like we can also not be satisfied. We can also see that the sport could be doing better. You know what I mean? And to me, it's been a good year for us, because we're comparing it to previous years. Like it's a comparative year. We have comparative rounds,
Right.
when we're watching a fight. This is a comparative year. Now, look, we're getting a lot of undisputed champions at the moment. A lot of the top fighters are testing themselves. We might get, knock on wood, Crawford versus Spence. We have great young talent on the come up. Virgil Ortiz is definitely my favorite at the moment, but there's others, right? Some people are big on Boots. Not that I'm not, but it's we're gonna see as everything progresses. But I did a video, like, I'm trying to remember, like it was years ago. I'm talking years ago. It's still up, right? I couldn't find it right now, and I talked about the triangle business of boxing, right?
I remember it.
Well, there's 4 sections. One of them is the fans, and they cut us out. You know what I mean? And part of it, at the time, I blamed the execs, the powers to be, the HBOs, right? I blamed them because they would just do things that didn't make any sense, right? Like they're paying Berto a cool $1 million to fight
Freddie
who?
Hernandez.
Yeah, Freddie Hernandez. And I'm like, why just like, I'm not mad. Again, I'm not mad at Berto for it, but then you're shocked when it's difficult to get Berto in the ring with a more difficult opponent for the same amount of money. He's going to want 3. If the opponent's 3-4 times harder, guess what? He wants 3-4 times the amount of money, right? That's just the way it is. Okay. If you're paying somebody $1,000 to do a certain amount square feet of landscaping, and then all of a sudden you want to do 3 times the work for the same amount of money, they're going to look at you like you're stupid. You know what I mean? So this is behavior that was enabled by execs, by the powers to be. Like the zone came in, they started throwing money around. I don't blame the fighters for taking it, but now they're wondering. One of them was crying on Ariel Helwani. He's like, we wanted a return on our investment, and they just weren't willing to. They wanted more money to fight more difficult opposition. Well, no shit. You know what I mean? Well, what do you think is going to happen? All right. But now I feel like boxing fans are largely to blame, because boxing fans, they sound like managers. They sound like PR people for fighters, bro.
It's the biggest problem.
Why do you go give that guy an interview? He don't support you. Like, media members aren't supposed to support fighters anyway. What are you guys talking about? You're not supposed to financially support them. We're not supposed to be PR people. Boxing fans shouldn't be PR people. We shouldn't be running interference. Ladies and gentlemen, interference on the play. Okay? We have a lot of interference going on. Too much of it. All right? Stop talking like the dude's manager. Dude, like, what are you doing? You're supposed to be saying, I want the fight. Well, I want the fight too, but what has he done, though? What does he bring to the table? I feel he needs to bring his name up a little more, and then I'll see the fight. Like what are you talking about? I just want to see who are the top dudes, and I want to see them fight each other. That's it. That's literally all I want. That's it. That's it. Like, but what about Canelo? You don't criticize him. First of all, yeah, I do. But second, is Bivol a top 3 light heavyweight in the world? Yes or no? Everybody knows it's a yes. So how am I going to criticize him for that? Objectively speaking, people found a way to it. But if you find a way, if you do, you have a right to. But if you criticize them for that, then holy shit, we got a lot of criticism if it's going to trickle down to give out, right? We have a whole lot of it, like, for everybody. I'm just saying, but people need to stop, bro. I'm going to have this shit ready. I'm going to have it ready anytime I see somebody running interference for a fighter. You're going to get penalized. Red flag. It's time. Enough is enough. Enough running interference for your favorite fighters. Enough, stop acting like fanboys. Stop being PR people. Just stop. Stop running interference. Oh, I don't know if he's ready yet. Fuck, what? And if he's not, he's not. What's the worst that could happen? Oh my God, he loses. Oh my God. So what? Look how many times Holyfield lost against Moore. He came back. Oh, but then he lost against Lewis. He still came back. You know what I mean? Like good fighters can lose and come back. All right.
They all did. They all did. Fanagers. It's fanagers. And they drive us crazy, right? Because look, my electricity bill went up 600%. Is Tank Davis's pay-per-view split going to help pay my electricity bill? No, it's not. It's not. So I'm not going to get on here and cap for any one fighter over another. I want a sustainable sport. I want boxing to be sustainable. But listen to what we just said as far as this a comparative year for boxing. And look, this has been a great year. And we've praised it over and over and over since April of this year, how great this year has been. But look at the stats I read off at the top. Only 42 fights so far in 2022 from the top 50 pound-for-pound fighters, according to BoxRec. 42. That's not even one per fighter through 7 months, almost into month 8. All the stats I read off that we only have, according to 2021 and 2022, we only have, out of the top 50, we only have 21 fighters who are considered or on pace to be full-time fighters for both 21 and 2022. And that's not sustainable. Just think if all those guys were full-time fighters, we're talking about this year being great. This year would be even better than what we're getting. And that's what we should be getting on the norm. Great subject. The fault can go around, but it all comes back to the subject of money, writing yoga. Appreciate that. Writing yoga with the super chat.
Yogi.
Writing yoga. I'm sorry. Yogi. But yeah, I mean, the subject of money, and we can blame the money. Yes, there needs to be other incentives, and there needs, at the end of the day, Mr. Boxing Today just brought up a great point. All undefeated fighters stacked in the division, and they're all saying, oh, I can't get the fight. I can't get the fight. I can't get the fight. I keep hearing that fighters want the fights and that the politics is holding it up. I don't believe it, man. I think these fighters are not doing a good enough job if they really want the fights, which I don't think they do, a lot of them. Not nearly as many as people tell me, of knocking on the door and saying, hey, Bob, hey, Leonard, hey, Al, hey, Eddie, I want this fight. I need you to make it. I need you to make it. Dimitri Bivol saying, hey, I know Buatsi is under our umbrella, but guess what? I'd rather fight Zerto. I'd rather fight Zerto right now. Hey, Better Beef saying, hey, I want the undisputed fight. I don't want to fight Yard in October. I want the undisputed fight. Make the undisputed fight. Do you think these conversations are happening? Because Tank said in the interview that he's not knocking on Leonard's door. He's not knocking on Floyd's door. He's the fighter. He fights the fights that are set up for him. So I don't know if these conversations are taking place behind closed doors. It takes fighters wanting legacy because the incentives for them to fight great fights are not there. We talked about it. The incentives for them to fight once per year, make great money, those are the incentives that are there. They don't have incentives to fight multiple times per year. But guess what? Canelo's doing it. Guess what? Bam Rodriguez is doing it. And guess what? Going for legacy, Canelo's climbing up the ranks of legacy. And guess what Canelo's also doing? He's making $50 million per fight. And I'm not saying everybody's going to beat Canelo, but if you engage with your fan base, if you build an organic fan base over time, fighting 3, 4, 5 times per year up until you get to that prime of your career where the big fights are coming to you, you're going to get all of it together. You're going to get the legacy. You're going to get the money. And that's what I want to see more fighters doing, betraying the incentives that are there, betraying the promoter and managers saying, hey, just kick back, just kick back. I talk about it all the time. I went to a fight in Biloxi, Mississippi, Andre Berto versus Luis Collazo. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm comped. I'm sitting right behind Lou DiBella. I got in for free. I'm looking around. There's like 400 people in the arena in this little theater. And I'm thinking, how many of these people got in for free as well? And I'm also thinking to myself, why in the hell is this fight in Biloxi, Mississippi? And it's in Biloxi, Mississippi because Lou DiBella just took the highest site fee. Instead of building for long term and saying, I'm going to put this fight in South Florida, or I'm going to put it in New York, we have a Puerto Rican American fighting a Haitian American in Biloxi, Mississippi.
Didn't make sense. And I'll tell you, I feel like the older we get, the more we understand it. Like the more you actually like, at least me, when you work in the business world and you start to understand business, you start to understand long-term thinking, investing in, like sometimes you take a loss because you're investing into something in the future. And it just seems like, the longer you have a professional life, the longer you kind of understand these things. And it comes with maturity, the more we understand it. And it seems like the sport itself isn't understanding it. The sport is like all over the place, bro. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and this is a good point too, is in the UFC, and I know there's no central body here, but you get incentivized for a knockout in a championship fight. You get incentivized for the fight of the night. So more incentives need to be put out there, extra incentives on top of the purse to reward fighters for putting on great performance. And we had great performances this year, but I've also seen guys coast to a decision. It looks like they could step on the gas and get a fighter out of there. And that also can be good. But I just keep going back to this. We need an educated fan base.
Right.
It's going to be hard to get these things without an educated fan base.
Yeah, bro, I feel like the boxing fans know, bro. But like boxing fans, like we're like, I don't want to say we, like as in me and you, but you know what I mean. As a whole, in general, boxing fans, like we're stuck with these little petty arguments and like little petty, like little petty wars and little petty, tribal crap going on. Like we're just stuck with little like the Glovegate thing. Like nobody gave a fuck outside of the boxing world. Literally, like, nobody gave a fuck, but it was like personal and people were going to war about it. I don't know what the war, I think it was pretty obvious that, it was just a bunch of, disgruntled and, sore losers pretty much. Okay. Going on. But nonetheless, that type of shit is what we're focused on. And boxing fans, like they'll burn the whole shit to the ground if they don't want to give a fighter credit or vice versa. Like they don't give a shit. They'll shit on the whole fucking sport because something didn't go their way. Like that's how petty boxing fans are. Okay, it's just a bunch of petty people. Like a lot of boxing fans. I don't mean to shit, and I don't mean our audience. You guys are cool, but I'm just talking in general. To look at the shit that's out there. Look at the clickbait articles. Like there's dudes that do videos every day about how Canelo's scared of Beterbiev or Beterbiev. Is that really like a relevant story? Is that like a real thing? Well, it is in some circles, and then the Canelo fans go at it with them. Oh no, he's not scared. Oh, but he is scared. If you're a Canelo fan, you're wasting your time arguing with somebody that way. Don't allocate your time, which is precious, on arguing dumb things and getting in these little petty arguments with other content creators or other boxing fans about is this guy for real? Is that guy not for real? Like Tank fans think he wins all the fictional battles. They don't want to hear anything else. Like, I'm not going to argue with this. Like, I'm not going to argue with somebody like that. All right? I'm not. So we're already a small fan base, and we're divided, like in all types of ways, right? It's not a strong fan base. It's not I believe most boxing fans are educated and know better, right? But
other things take precedent over that.
Yes,
and that's the
100%.
issue. Because if that's true, what you're saying, and I kind of believe you, other things are taking precedent over the good of the sport. And that's frustrating to me, a person like me who the good of the sport goes above everything else because I want a sustainable sport that I can hand over to my kids a generation from now and say, hey, this sport's in a good place. Let's kick up and watch it on a Friday and Saturday night together. But when you put other things take precedent over the good of the sport, it's frustrating to me. And I declare war against those people because I don't care who it's coming from. For me, especially somebody who just wants to see that and somebody who doesn't care. I've said this oftentimes. I don't care, white, black, brown, yellow, communist, capitalist, socialist, doesn't matter to me. If you're giving me the fights I want, if you're constantly testing yourself, I love you as a fight fan. And I'll go to bat for you here if you're constantly and consistently giving me that. So when those things take precedent over boxing in these circles, in these discussions, that's where it starts to get frustrating for me, because none of those things, when it comes to boxing, should come above boxing. Your favorite fighter, and your favorite fighter is going to be your favorite fighter for whatever reason. For me, it's just, like I said, I just like guys who test themselves. That's it. That's my criteria. But if your favorite fighter is your favorite fighter because you share a skin color or a nationality, that's fine. Everybody has the right to support whoever they want because of what they want. But the issue is when that fighter fails to live up to whatever the expectations may be for the betterment of the sport, and you cap for that fighter instead of calling them out on it, that's where the issue is. That's where the issue is.
That is the main thing. Regardless, this goes across the board. Like, there are fans that just aren't consistent, right? So like let me put it this way. Like, if you're for cheating, you're for cheating. Or against cheating, I'm sorry. If you're against cheating, if you're against, if you're about, I don't want guys on PEDs, right? If that's what you're about, right? For whatever reason, like you're big on that, then be big on it across the board. Mm-hmm. Don't make excuses when your fighter gets caught, right? So I still remember when Big Baby Miller got busted again, right, for taking, performance enhancers, right? Then a content creator on here, the immediate thing was, well, you know what? I'm not going to say nothing because when I was saying something about these other guys, people were defending them, so I'm not going to say anything about Miller doing it. Okay, then you don't stand for nothing then. Like, at that point, you don't have a core of anything. Mm-hmm. Like, you're just a simpleton in your thinking. That's it. Like, it's tribal at that point. That's all it is. It's not logic.
You have to have values to stand on, and
you have to have values that you stand on and things that you're against. Like, I can ask Alex right now. You don't really
believe in something. You don't find out what you believe in until it's tested.
Absolutely. Like here's the thing.
You don't believe in it.
100%. And look, I'll ask Alex right now. Has D-style boxing ever supported catch weights?
No.
Has D-style boxing always criticized catch weights, especially for title fights?
Yes.
Yes. Did I criticize Canelo when he participated in catch weights?
Yes.
Yes.
I remember back to the Matthew Hatton days.
Absolutely. I liked Canelo. I was pumping the dude up. Okay, but guess what? He's going to get the same energy because I'm a consistent motherfucker. There's a lot of dudes out here that don't stay consistent. Okay, and the reason that matters is because if boxing fans were a collective unit and said, we all collectively said, we don't want catch weights, they'll probably never give us catch weights for title fights. If we all collectively said, and I can give you examples, you know how many dudes were always calling, they were calling Pacquiao the catch weight bitch, right? But then when Mayweather asked for a catch or did a catch with Canelo, no, but Canelo asked for it. Floyd didn't ask for it. Like stop acting stupid. You know damn well what happened in that situation. I don't need to explain it. Okay? So I was against it when Floyd did it, when Manny did it, when Canelo did it. Whether it's the black dude, the Mexican, or the Filipino, I don't give a fuck. Okay, I was against it in all instances. Across the board. That's what consistency means. Now, it doesn't mean, look, I'm human. We all have our faults. We're going to be inconsistent here and there. But it's about, the effort you put in, right? That's what it's about. At the end of the day, that's what it's about. So it is what it is.
Yep, and shout out to Drew with the super chat. Can't get to the apex of your craft doing it part-time. And I love this comment because it brings us right back to where we started. There are many things wrong with a part-time fighting climate, which we're in, where we have more part-time fighters in the top 50 pound for pound than we have full-time fighters. The main issue with it for me as a boxing fan is you can't build a sustainable sport that's going to thrive off of that. And I'm talking about thriving because surviving is a different thing. Boxing will always survive. Always. We can go back to, we can cite articles from a century ago. Oh, boxing's dying. And then from 50 years, oh, boxing's dying. A year ago, oh, boxing's never going to die. We all know that.
Boxing like the cockroaches, bro. You can't get rid of them. Get rid of it. Like, you know what I mean? It's what it is. A point I was going to make, I kind of trailed off a little bit. Because you said we need an educated boxing base. I think what we need is a consistent boxing base. That's what we need. Like boxing fans across the board, and we all stay consistent and said, we want to see the best fight the best. That's what we want. Right? Whatever it is. Somebody wins a title. Hey, time to test yourself. Oh, that guy's calling me out. He's clout chasing. No, that's what he's supposed to do. He's supposed to call you out because you have the belt. That's not like if you want to call, if that's what they say, call it now, whatever. I guess boxers have clout chased since the beginning of boxing. Right?
Oh, no doubt. No doubt.
I guess Ali clout chase, Liston. You know what I mean? I guess Liston was clout chasing, Patterson. Okay, I guess. You know what I mean? I guess, that's what they call it now, clout chasing. Okay. We just need to be consistent. That's it. And unfortunately, I don't think it's going to happen, brother.
And this is another great point by Drew. Another super chat. Appreciate it. One time a year shouldn't be fight of the year or get awards. Now, performance of the year, possibly. That can be a part-time award. Upset of the year. Those can be part-time awards. Yeah. But fighter of the year is a full-time award. You should not be handing out awards, fighter of the year awards to a guy who fights once a year. We cannot be incentivizing guys to get these awards who are part-time fighters.
True. Look,
we shouldn't. And another thing, D-Style, when it comes to incentives, we can't say that undisputed is the end-all be-all because you're the champion of the division. It's undisputed, and then not reward these guys by putting them on top pound-for-pound lists and whatnot. Right. Because guess who's in my pound-for-pound list? Jamal Charlo. Guess who's in my pound-for-pound list? Devin Haney. These guys earned it by becoming undisputed. No matter how long it took, no matter if one was easier than the other, they are the champion in a division. They should be on a pound-for-pound list. We have to reward guys who are doing the things that we say we want. And it goes back to your consistency point.
Look, do you remember Tyson Fury's great performance last year?
Against Deontay Wilder?
No, that was actually the year before.
Wow.
2020. Wow. But somehow, explain to me, now, and it's not that I care about this award, but it shows you
the ESPY.
Yeah, like how little the casual knows. Like they don't know anything. Like they voted because I believe they vote those awards, right? The fans or whatever.
Yeah.
So I blame two people. I blame ESPN for nominating him, and I blame the fans for voting for him.
Because ESPN
didn't even fight.
Is responsible for the list of 4 fighters, and then the fans can vote on it. So this is ESPN doing this.
And then the fans voted for a dude that he didn't even fight. How does he win fight of the year if he didn't even fight? How's that possible? like that tells you how little these casuals know. So when people are like, oh, well, we do these things for the casuals. Well, they don't know anything. Dude, you couldn't lie to a casual. You could be talking boxing and just lie your fucking ass off. They'll believe you. They don't know anything. That's just the truth. So fuck the casuals. The casuals aren't going nowhere. You sell a good fight to a casual, he's going to buy it, okay? Casuals wear Slayer t-shirts, and they never even heard Slayer, all right? Right, they're walking around with Metallica t-shirts and shit and never heard a Metallica song in their life. All right? Yeah. Those are the casuals. So the casuals are not going to go anywhere. They're always, you tell them this is a big fight, they're going to buy it. Okay? So fuck the casuals. The hardcores, the ones that carry this sport, okay? bro. Like this, people call it a sinking Titanic. This shit's been sinking for 100 years, and we keep putting that water out, keeping the shit afloat. It keeps getting hit by icebergs, and we keep the shit afloat, right? And we're not appreciated, right? Like we're not respected by the boxing world. We're not. We're just not. We're like that with that loyal wife that keeps getting cheated on and battered. They don't give a fuck.
We're
But
Tina.
they need us.
We're Tina.
Yeah, we're Tina.
All right. And we keep coming through the door. We keep cooking. We keep putting out hit after hit to keep the house afloat. And we get no respect. We got to drop what's love got to do with it. We got to drop it and leave Ike. And we don't want to leave Ike. We want to build a better sport. But this is the biggest problem plaguing boxing to me right now. It's the biggest issue. And we can talk about sanctioning bodies and too many belts. And I'll be talking about this on the channel tomorrow. You know, I'm the belts gone wild guy. We'll be talking about Reggie belts and all that stuff. You can talk about fighters not being on network TV. I think that's overplayed at this point because people will watch the apps now. Pretty much everybody's streaming. I mean, pretty much everybody's streaming right now. So
yeah, the
people
days
will
of the
find,
family.
if it's a great product, D-style, people are going to find it. People are going to find it. Could they make it easier? Yes. So maybe that does have a little bit of an impact. You can't discount that.
Look, the days of the family getting together, watching a sporting event together, outside of the Super Bowl, those days are over, brother.
Mm-hmm.
They're done.
But to me, the biggest issue is part-time fighting because, as Drew brought up earlier, you're not sharpening your sword. You're not practicing your craft properly. You can't get it in the sparring. You got to get it under the big lights. And if this is trickling down all the way to the bottom and you have prospects fighting 3, maybe 4 times per year, you're not practicing your craft good enough. And it's not going to lead to a better sport because if these guys are, they're going to be fighting better. You see guys fighting once a year and still pulling out due to injuries. They're not sharpening their swords, and they're not being the fighters that they're capable of becoming because of it. All of us have to practice our craft. There's that rule. What is it? 10,000 hours. You have to be great at your
Yeah, they're like Simba, bro. They're just singing Hakuna Matata with Timon and Pumbaa shit. That's what they're doing. You know, they're not living up to the potential. Like, remember when Mufasa was like, Simba, remember who you are. Like, dude, like go back to Pride Rock, bro. Go back to Pride Rock and get your throne and prove you're the best.
Mm-hmm. But am I out of pocket? Is this not the biggest issue in the sport of boxing? Would you agree with that?
I do agree that fighters are not as active, and I do think it's a problem for sure. It's probably debatable if it's the biggest problem, but I think it's still tied together, in my opinion. Like, I think because it's tied to incentivizing fighters. It's tied to that, you know? And right now, it's like guys are getting praise for making more money than guys that are fighting for titles. Because, like, for whatever reason, that's just their money. It makes no sense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. No, like, didn't he say that in the clouds or something? Is that what he said? Remember who you are. I'm pretty sure he said that. I haven't watched that movie in years, but
I think that was Mufasa who said that in the cloud. Maybe it was what was the monkey's name? Rafiki.
maybe they need Rafiki, like, to get him back, in the mix. I don't know, but hey.
Either way. But let me read these stats one more time because to me it's dumbfounding. Top 50 pound for pound box rec, 110 total fights in the past year and a half plus. That's just not going to cut it. They're averaging, the top 50 pound for pound fighters in the sport are averaging 1 fight per 9 months. So what that means is even if your favorite fighter puts on a great performance, you're likely not going to see him again that calendar year. And that's why, like, even if Mark Magsayo loses, even if Joe Smith Jr. loses, guess what? At least they fought twice in 7 months so far this year. They're the only 2 guys who have fought twice this year.
Yeah, look, Jermell versus Tim Tszyu. I love the fight, but they're going to make it all the way in January. Like, What?
And that's probably a budget issue.
And that's a budget issue. This is what happens when you start paying fighters money that they themselves don't generate. Because if Jermell generated what they're paying them, this fight, we wouldn't be waiting until January for this fight. Like,
I like this point that Bruce Gas brings up, and shout out to Bruce Gas, because ESPN and USA Fights gave prospects a platform to grow and be recognized. Never try to sell untested goods as premium fighters. And it goes back to the point Mr. Boxing Today brought up earlier when it comes to networks. Back 10 years ago, when we were first doing this YTBC thing, it was easy to know where to go, right, for certain types of things. We know we can go to ESPN Friday Night Fights and Showbox on Friday nights to see the prospects come up, right? And then we know on Saturday night we can go to HBO and Showtime, to see the big fights. And there were other smaller networks that were premiering fighters, but we knew where to go to get the prospects, and there was a budget there set up for prospects to stay active and still be seen on TV. We don't have that anymore, man. It's like clouded now, right? Yeah. You can get prospects on the zone. Sometimes they'll be in the main event. Sometimes they'll be buried in the undercard. But it's not clear as to where you go and what time you go to see the prospects fight. We don't have like a designated time, 8 p.m. on ESPN, 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. And then you go to 10 p.m. to 12 p.m. On Showtime to see the prospects come up. And the prospects are able to build an organic base by staying active because it's built into the budget for these prospects to fight. Now we're being sold, it seems, prospects as big-time fighters. And once again, prospects are getting paid bigger money and prospects are not as active. This is another issue in boxing.
Yeah. I mean, look, I've always said this. Let me say this one last thing. I remember people would make this point, and at first I felt like it's a hard point to counter without sounding like an asshole, right? But, you know, they would just say things like, oh, these fighters deserve that money. They put their lives on the line. Look how a lot of these fighters, they end up broke. They end up with nothing. So whatever they can make it. Yeah, let's go. Like, you know what I mean? They're warriors. They put their lives on the line. If they're going to pay them $3 million, let them, right? I get it. But there's a budget. There's like money's fight night. I don't know if people know this. There's only so much of it, right? There's a budget. And when a few good men make all the money, that leaves a bunch of other fighters out in the cold without the big money. Okay? Mm-hmm. So well, what good is that? So I don't like using the term, but for the lack of a better term, when you overpay fighters, all right? Okay, that's good for that one fighter. It doesn't benefit all the other fighters. Like, you pay, Mikey Garcia was paid $7 million to fight Vargas. They paid Katie Taylor like $2 million and Amanda Serrano $1 million, and they had a historic boxing event. Just think about that. Why? Because incentivizing them was easier because they've never made that type of money. Mike Garcia got $7 million. How many events like Amanda Serrano versus Katie Taylor could they have done and paid somebody $1 million? Like, you know how many fighters would be grateful for $1 million payday that are waiting for that type of payday? I'm just saying, like, they could have paid a couple dozen fighters really good money, like $500,000, $400,000 to fight on the zone, but no, they wanted to give Mike Garcia $7 million. Look, okay, good for Mikey Garcia, not really good for the pool of fighters. So if you are pro, like, oh, I'm in favor of the fighters, fuck the networks. Whatever they can make it. No, you're pro that fighter because all the other fighters got fucked. That's just the truth, right? And you can't get mad at the ones that have the budget. They're the ones forking out the money. We're not, you're like, you know what I mean? I'm just saying. Which is kind of our money because we pay the zone. They get that money and then they have a budget. So it kind of fucks us over too, but it's whatever.
Yeah. It's frustrating on many levels, and it all ties in, like you said. It all ties in. That's a great point. But any last thoughts on chronic inactivity? Because I'm gonna be railing this thing home, man. This is one thing I'm really gonna go after on this channel is chronic inactivity, and we shouldn't be rewarding and incentivizing fighters who fight once a year, unless they're on their very end of their career. We need to be rewarding and giving. We need to have our own built-in reward system in which the more a guy fights, the more he's going to put himself at risk, and the more we should be rewarding these guys, and the more forgiving we should be for this fighter if he has a loss. I keep bringing up Canelo. The reason I did not drop Canelo a lot on my pound for pound rankings, and the reason I'm frustrated with people who dropped them all the way out their pound for pound rankings, and once again, it's subjective, but he fought Dimitri Bivol, and he lost. And he's also fought 5 times since December 2020.
Yes.
He's fought 5 times in the same span that some of these guys in the pound for pound list have fought.
Yeah, but the Bivol thing, have you noticed? Like, that's what I've noticed. Okay. People, like, they go as far as to get in Canelo's brain to criticize the fight. And that's what I mean by this. Okay, this is how far they go. Like they could read minds all of a sudden. Like, if you have that ability, I don't know why you work. I don't know what, like, dude, you should be like fucking. You could read people's minds, but like they're like, nah. But you know what? Canelo thought that was going to be an easy fight. That's why he took it, and he thought that. So I'm not going to give him any credit for. I'm gonna, you know, at all, because he thought that was going to be an easy fight because he wanted to avoid Beterbiev. So I believe that he thought it was going to be easy breezy. So, like, how do you know Canelo thought that?
Yeah. And once again, does that even matter, though? Because
it doesn't matter, but that's how far they need to go.
Right, because Bivol is who he is. We know that now. The best, statistically, the best defensive fighter in the sport, him and Shakur Stevenson.
Let me tell you this, Calix. If Bivol ain't shit, why were these people like? It was mainly like Andre Ward detractors. But why were they saying things like oh, Andre Ward's going to retire because he wants to avoid Bivol? So Andre Ward was avoiding him 4 years ago when he was like a brand spanking new to the pro ranks, but Canelo was handpicking him when he's more of a veteran. Oh yeah, I picked him because he didn't look so good in the last fight. That's why. Oh, you're in Canelo's head now. So now you're able to analyze all that. Come on.
Yeah. So just to wrap it up, chronic inactivity, a big problem. Guys need to step it up. We can have a surviving sport because boxing is going to survive whatever, but we can't have a thriving sport. And imagine a thriving sport. I've heard this analogy being brought up. If a basketball game is played on one block, a baseball game on one block, a football game on one block, and a fight on this block, guess what? Who everybody's going to gravitate towards?
Going to the fight.
They're going to the fight. They're going to the dudes throwing hands. So this is how messed up the system is. This is how messed up it is systemically, that people are staying away from the fight and going to the basketball game, the baseball game, the football game. That's how messed up this is. So we can't
have a lot of dudes.
Sport.
I'm just going to say it. Because a lot of these dudes, like, they don't get in the ring to fight like once every 9 months and shit. And some of them, you know, like, they don't actually fight when they're in the ring. Mm-hmm. They just play tag for 12 rounds and shit. That's a different story, though.
And by the way, that number would be worse had you not had guys like Canelo, Bam Rodriguez, Joe Smith Jr., Mark Magsayo.
I think they have, like, I don't think they count guys that are inactive either, Calix. So, like Guy Estrada, I don't know if he's on that top 50 because I think they have him inactive.
That's a good point. It could be.
And we know he's a top 50. He's definitely top 50 in the sport. You know what I mean? But he's inactive, right? By the way, another fighter who, by the way, like, they ain't getting paid them. Like, what they offer him for the Franco fight, after, when I see all the money they just throw out at fighters, right? Shit like, oh, only 120,000 between the two of them, Franco and Gallo. That shit pisses me off because then, well, where you guys at? The pro fight. Oh, I want the fighters to make all they need, and like, you guys ain't nowhere to be found when fighters get shafted because there's nothing left in the fucking budget.
Yeah. But that's a great point you just brought up, that it's actually worse statistically, because if you're not active, if you haven't fought, I think, what is it, a year in box rec?
Yeah.
Is it 12 months?
I
You
don't know.
kicked
If
off
it's
the
all,
list
I don't
altogether.
know. I don't know if anybody knows what it is, but I don't know what it is. But I know that eventually you're called inactive.
You called inactive. And so there are guys in the top 50 pound for pound who are inactive and not counted on this list. So you're likely looking at, it's closer to once a year, maybe even more than that, when you take all that into account. So great discussion. I'll be back with more tomorrow on this channel. I'll be back with you tomorrow night. Where are we going to be on? Is that
Hey,
B?
D-Style, it's going to be on D-Style Boxing tomorrow on my
Okay.
channel. So everybody make sure you tune in. Round two, we're going to have Montero. We're going to have Ring IQ. We're going to have Ohio Runs Boxing on, so of course, Calix, myself, Beeb. I believe somebody else, but I don't like to say names unless I get to go. You know what I mean? So there's somebody else, but we'll see. This is some great discussion here. Maybe on one of these Tuesdays, Wednesdays, we can maybe bring Mr. Boxing today too, or something, but I talked to Beeb. He's one to come out when we're talking like the sports betting and stuff. So everybody, make sure you hit that bell button. D-Style Boxing, Calix. We're going to be. We don't have an official time because we want to be flexible. The more flexible we are, the more shows we could do. Right. So, so just stay tuned. Tuesday, Wednesdays. And that's all I got.
That's all I got too. See you guys tomorrow. And if you're in the archives, make sure to hit that like button as well. And don't cap for fighters, right?
Don't cap for fighter. We're going to call interference.
Interference.